What's your I don't know, I didn't think I'd get this far moment? I gave my resume to fancy private school. I'm a teacher, but new to the field, and I didn't expect a call back. But they called me today to ask my expected salary, and I said I don't know what the average is. Let me Google it. Yeah, girl was not prepared. I was taught to say we can discuss that upon offer of employment, if ever asked at an interview, and it saved me, because I definitely had to Google it for the area a couple of times. It's so frustrating when they ask, because unless you have a lot of specialized experience in the field or you are being sniped from another company, they don't give a what you want to be paid. They have their own offer in mind. Well, it's a negotiation. You want them to pay you as much as possible, and they want to pay you as little as possible. They ask that to get more information and possibly win the negotiation. In my experience, they don't negotiate. If you don't want to work for what they are offering, they hire someone else. Unless, like I said, you have a specific skill they want they can't easily get elsewhere. Me at work. I feel like every issue that comes up has me unprepared. But I'm always praised for my good work. So, I assume I have imposter syndrome and keep doing what I'm doing. The ability to deal with any unprepared issue is more important than knowing how to deal with a fixed amount of issues. One of my older bosses told me something that helped me deal with my imposter syndrome. He said, when I hired you, I wasn't looking for someone who knew all the answers. I was looking for someone who knew how to find the answers they didn't know. Really stuck with me. My Google fu is strong. Over the jobs in it that I had, I got specifically because of this. I was given a timed test with a proctor in the room, on a PC, that had internet access. I got to an answer I had no clue on, went back and reread the rules, and saw that there was no prohibition from looking for an answer. So I googled it. Plugged the answer into the test and finished. Proctor told me later one of the things they look for is someone that looks for answers elsewhere. Honestly, any job that wants you to do a technical screen without the ability to use the tools you'd have in a real environment is a bad shop MO. It even drives me crazy how many certification tests do this. I'm looking at you, Cisco. Disabling the damn help pages on your simulated networking environment for your tests. In real life, you'll never work with a Cisco networking device that doesn't have those. When I realized I've been in a stable relationship for 4 years and people start asking when we are getting engaged. I have a buddy who's incredibly socially awkward. His wife is a perfect match. They got married because someone asked them if they were getting married, and they said yes because they didn't know how to explain that they hadn't had that conversation yet. When he told me this story, I asked him when he was having kids, and he told me to go myself, so at least he's making a little progress. I'm maybe 5 years off retiring. People keep asking me what I am going to do once I get there. This is pretty much my reply. Eater, thanks for all the advice. I've got a few ideas about post-retirement life and a few hobbies I want to pick back up. I'll be doing some volunteering as well. Some advice: don't actually leave your job until you figure out. You'll end up mostly sitting around, and you get a feeling of having no purpose, and it's difficult to get out of that funk, especially since you don't have much to do, so there's no incentive/motivation. This is pretty common for people retiring, so don't think won't happen to me. Find a hobby, find some place to volunteer, etc. You need some sort of consistent activity from day to day. Also, make sure you get a complete health exam and use those benefits before leaving your job. Obvious things like full blood work, etc. Your doctor will have a list, but I'd also suggest things like an ultrasound and CAT scan of your abdominal. Not for fishing for something wrong, but to use as a baseline for if you have issues later. It'll help figure out what's wrong quicker, so you can start treatment sooner. And pro tip, get a CD and report printout of the exam. It'll be much easier getting the reports to specialists than trying to get them sent by your doctor or the facility, and needing to deal with the consent forms and back and forth when you don't feel well. One other trick I have seen a few people doing where I work is retiring gradually, dropping down to a 4-day week, to stretch out your weekends and time at home that bit further, and perhaps losing another day or so as you go. A bit more of a transition in time to learn how to unwind and occupy yourself, rather than suddenly going from 40 hours to 0 and ending up at a loose end. Unless a crash stop works for you, in which case go with whatever makes the most sense. For you personally. When I was a child, we had a family reunion in a park with a lake and a small beach. Off the side of the lake, far away from where the lifeguards were, was a deck about 10 feet above the water, and a structure with rings hanging for you to swing on, grab the next, etc. I felt the need to try it. After I got to the last ring I realized I was just as far from shore as I was to a floating platform near the beach. My arms were tired from making it to the end. No way could I manage swinging back to the deck, so I dropped into the water and tried swimming to the platform. That's when I realized up. I knew how to swim, but I was not prepared for the exhaustion in my arms. After what felt like an eternity I managed to make it to the platform, but had no energy to actually climb the tiny rope ladder to make it on top of the platform to rest. So I just grabbed it and rested while in the water for 15 minutes. Before feeling confident I could make close enough to the beach where my feet could touch the bottom. I literally thought I was going to drown at one point. I remember once climbing some rocks while camping with some buddies. We had been drinking one afternoon and I wandered off and started climbing this sort of cliff face and was just in my own little world and got probably a 100 to 150 feet up or so before I suddenly sort of snapped out of my zone and looked around, and I was precarious as and it was starting to be dusk and I had no real idea how I was going to get down. I was not, nor am I now, any sort of mountain climber with any skills. This was a very dry region, pretty much high plains desert, and was a craggy sort of cliff face with a lot of loose rocks and I'm also very scared of heights and get sweaty palms and such. I did eventually make it down, but there were a few times I thought I was just stuck there or going to fall to my death or injury. I paid off my mortgage a couple months ago. It had been my focus for the last few years to just pump all my money into it, especially for lack of anything better to do during the pandemic. And then I had to put my cat down like a week beforehand. So I was sitting in this house I'd just paid off, literally alone, feeling like I should be celebrating, but instead feeling like utter. Oh man, I just wanted to congratulate you and brag a bit that we are also planning on paying off our mortgage in the next 5 months. Then you had to go and lose a cat and make me cry. I lucked out. My childhood cat lived over 20 years with our family. She ended up mostly grey shades, started as a tortoiseshell, with bold patches on her head. She walked really slow and careful those last few years, unless there was a strange dog walking by her yard that needed to be chased off. She wandered off in the end, so we never had to deal with her end of life stuff. It's been 15 years now, and I still think I hear her scratching at the door sometimes. Congrats on the house, but that is not really what I wanted to hear. It's the little things that get to me the most, like mistaking a bush for her sitting there, or thinking I hear her trotting down the hall. When I went for a walk-in interview looking like they hired me on the spot. I get they were hiring for a new store, but they up and said if you want the job it's yours. When can you start? Deadest didn't think I'd make it that far. OMG, same thing happened to me at an apparently desperate Applebee's. I think I was wearing pajama pants. Did similar without pajamas, walked in, asked for a job, the lady greets me by name, walks in the back, says App is here and wants a job. Tell him he's hired and get back her for the application. My dad is one of the top bowling alley mechanics in the state apparently, and either worked with everyone in the business at some point or he bowled with them. They recognized me and were like, hey, you'll know how to make lane calls because of your dad, right? I then proceeded to do everything else for 7 months. They saw your boldness after you walked in naked. Actually have another story from that workplace about nudity too. Told the girl, hey, don't change in the kitchen or the cameras will get ya. Let me clear you to change in the office, to which I promptly entered the office to come face to face with the TV screen showing her stripping naked and then putting on a full different set of clothes, bra and all, for the same job in a different location. I applied for a mortgage loan to waste time, since I can never get credit. Boy was I surprised to find out I had a 740 credit score and secured financing. Holding the keys to my new home was an experience. This is how we ended up buying our house almost 7 years ago. I had a few glasses of wine one night and thought it'd be cool to apply for a home loan, to see how far away we were from actually qualifying. 40 something days later we were standing in our new living room saying, well, that escalated quickly. I kept waiting for the prank cameras to jump out at our closing. Holy shit, America is so probably opening for a big band for my first ever time on stage. Mortifying. Even the sound guy could very clearly see it was my first sound check. Dude. We were all in his basement like a week ago. I just happened to know the promoter. She needed to fill the spot, called me, and we were all smash drunk when we said yes, okay. Please stop yelling at me. I was pretty badass for being a rockstar, obviously. The first time on stage was freaky for me. Even though like half of the people in the audience were friends who came to see me. All I could think was, I'd probably look worse if I backed out. But my muscles were telling me to run. I read Dave Mustaine's autobiography, founder of Megadeth and former guitarist for Metallica, and he mentioned one of his drummers in the mid-late 2000s that he hired. The guy nailed the audition and played super well with the band all the way through their practices, but it wasn't until he saw the drummer puking backstage before their first show together that Dave M realized he had never played on a stage before. Imagine your first time on stage, being with one of the biggest names in rock/metal history. Not quite that bad, but I committed to giving a toast at a wedding in a foreign language that I did not speak after several drinks at a family holiday party. My cousin was engaged to marry a guy from a place I had a bunch of college friends from, and they knew I could spout off a bunch of phrases, so asked me if I'd do it. My drunk thought it sounded like a good idea. I ended up writing what I wanted to say, and a friend translated it phonetically and left me a voicemail so I could hear how it was supposed to sound. It ended up being really cool because I got up at the wedding and explained how this came to be and apologized to everyone there who spoke both languages. His mom didn't speak any English, but was at a table right in front of me, and as soon as I launched into the foreign toast her eyes lit up. That story is happening now. I quit smoking yesterday and it didn't go well. I broke down and had 2 cigarettes. I woke up this morning and had another without even registering what I was doing. That's what happens when you smoke for 23 years. It's just an unconscious act. After that, I shredded all my cigarettes and threw them in the trash. I hunted down all my lighters and threw them away. Took my 2 outside ashtrays and emptied them and threw them in the garbage. I've been chewing nicotine gum all day. The cravings are unbearable, but I've mitigated them by doing a bunch of yard work, taking naps, going for walks, and running errands. I haven't had a cigarette in about 17 hours, and it's by far the longest amount of time I've gone without smoking in 23 years. I'm kind of blown away that I've made it this far, but I have no idea what tomorrow will be like, but I'm feeling more confident by the hour. Edit. Thank you all for the support and the helpful suggestions. Having so many people in my corner really helps a lot. I quit 4 times. Once for 2 years. Then for 10. Now I smoke an occasional cigar. My old boss, Sam Lebedine, said something I'll never forget. You don't have to want to stop, you just have to decide. Yeah, that's how it happened. I've tried to quit before, but never just decided to quit. I never threw out all the lighters, ashtrays, etc. before. I also downloaded the smoke-free app, which has been oddly helpful. Seeing how long I've gone without, and documenting each craving, and watching each goal progress has been a really interesting process so far. I made it through the first day, and I hear that's the hardest one. I really hope that's the hardest one. The entire last 6 years of my life. I went from a depressed, new college grad to therapy and then to a digital nomad. I've lived and worked in 3 countries, speak 4 languages, and have been to 48 countries so far. When I first started therapy, I didn't think I'd make it 6 months. Now I'm making plans to move abroad more permanently. I definitely didn't think I'd get this far. You're living my dream life. Gotta be honest here, it sounds glamorous, but that isn't true. It is a lot of hard work. Sometimes contracts won't pay you, or they'll pay less than what you agreed, your visa gets put on hold, your laptop breaks, etc. I've done odd bartending, trash pickup, and similar jobs for money, exchanged English lessons for food, slept in train stations, couch surfed etc out of a single 40L Osprey. Don't believe everything you see on IG. I love what I do, but I'm just being honest. Thanks for bringing some realism back into things. Hatter, it's easy to imagine things in the best possible, and thus unrealistic, light. It still sounds very cool, albeit more stressful than I'd imagined. Getting a college degree. After my freshman year of college, I was worried that I would drop out due to stress sometime in my junior year, that I would make it to my final semester and not be able to do well in the senior project class, or that I would fail some of the hardest classes in my junior/senior year. Ended up graduating May 16th. For anyone wondering, my degree is in computer science. Man, I have 2 semesters left as a CS major. Finished my capstone and notoriously hard classes, and 7 of my 9 remaining classes are all level 1 XX Gen Eds. I still don't believe that I'm going to graduate. I nearly broke down to my girlfriend and friends last week because I can't help but feel like a complete failure in life. Every semester since I began I told myself, there's no way I'll pass this class or semester, so just be ready to drop out, yet I somehow have a 3.7 and my peers come to me for help. I even told myself I wouldn't even find a job, because why would they hire me when there's so many others out there who are clearly gifted while I'm not? Yet here I am, typing this from my desk of an internship turned offer, somehow making 70k a year while going to school. I truly don't get it. Just wanted to share that you aren't alone with those thoughts. I just completed a master's after telling myself age 19 that I never even wanted to get a degree at all. Funny thing is though, that I can't find a job after all that. It's funny, I'm the only one from my middle school, which in my country ends at 18 with a level exam, who didn't finish college. I did 1 semester and saw that people with degrees don't have a good jobs here, well unless you are doctor or something this specific. So I gave it a shot and tried to apply for position in Heineken at the brewery. Long story short, I worked myself up from basically nobody and now I'm responsible for energetics and environmental sustainability at our site. Although, I plan to go to college again to study energetics on the whole new level. Edit, having a best of my life at work right now, so I forgot what I was telling. After the years I'm the only one without degree and I have the better jobs than rest of my class from middle school. Every day, my mom died when I was 13, and I've been struggling with depression ever since. It's been up recently, but the biggest moment was a few years ago when I got my JED and just had a moment of how I didn't think I'd still be alive by now. Congrats on getting your JED. My dad died when I was 12 and he was 39. I've had lots of ups and downs and serious struggles. But I'm 39 now and I'm still here. And I know that my dad would want me to make the most of life and do the things he wasn't able to do. So I lead with that every day. I wake up, take a literal deep breath and I go and just live, and even on my worst days, I'm thankful for that breath. Pitbull has one of the greatest lines ever in a song, "This is for everyone going through tough times, believe me, been there done that. But every day above ground is a great day, remember that. Not sure it will help, but know you're not alone, and I wish you the best in life." Thank you, same to you. I do really appreciate it. I always like hearing others' stories because it's so easy to get lost in your own head, and it's really nice to see that, hey, there's always hope for the future. I used to overdraw my account on a weekly basis and have been evicted/homeless several times. Now I live comfortably and have a couple thousand in my savings, as well as being 2 months ahead in my bills. My bed broke a couple of weeks ago because it's old, but I could just buy a new one and not worry about not being able to afford food and bills because of it. I felt so awkward and uncomfortable talking to the sales rep because I never expected to be at a point in my life where I could invest in quality, and by quality, I mean not Walmart furniture, especially on such short notice. Nice man. I feel this BC I used to be I'd overdraw my account every 2 weeks. Get paid, spend it all in a few days, overdraw again, then commit retail thefts and sell goods at pawn shops for money. Pure desperation on all the time. A few years later, and I have plenty of savings, investments, a new car, and can pretty much buy anything, within reason, that I need without worrying. And not waking up dope sick at 5 AM every day is a plus. I went through similar. One point living on cheap snacks, and had no stable place to live. Holes in shoes, had to walk 3 hours to work some days. Doing worlds better now despite wanting to have been further. I get the feeling of having savings, and not worrying about an emergency expense. I'm obsessive over finances though, as I dread the thought of going back to that. It's possible of course, but I vowed to fight like a lion to prevent it from ever happening again. Wasn't exactly my moment, but it directly affected me. My husband and I had discussed moving away from a hometown because the crime rate was skyrocketing. We had no idea where we wanted to go, and honestly we were comfortable with life. It was a good idea, but wasn't something we were working towards. He owned his own business, and I was a preschool site supervisor. We had a good life. He went with the local college that he volunteered at to visit a manufacturing factory a couple hours away. They were all going to do weld test while they were there, but it wasn't for a job. It was to see if they could potentially get a job there if they were to actually apply. The company wasn't hiring welders at the moment, but wanted to give the students something to do. Well, he called me 5 hours later to tell me he did the weld tests, and they offered him a job on the spot. The money was good, better than what he was bringing in with his business, and he thought it was a wise decision. I was completely caught off guard and absolutely didn't want to move. We discussed it when he got home and decided he would go try it out for a month before I quit my job. He moved a month later, and 2 months after that I followed. Best decision we ever made. During our last week of school this year, my best friend was having doubts about her future and asked what I planned to do for college. I sat there, conflicted, for almost 10 minutes before shrugging and giving the standard, "I'm not sure." She was a bit concerned, since she and I are moving on to our junior year of high school. In my defense, all I could think of was how I didn't even see myself living past age 14. To say the least, she ended up suggesting my career plan for me, and I proudly plan on going with it. What career? Working as a translator or language educator for children. I've always found myself having a blast when given the opportunity to learn about different languages/cultures/traditions/etc. I'd gladly go through what it takes to be qualified if I could help someone else understand a new language. This is the end of the video. Thank you guys for staying with me till the end. If you enjoyed watching this, you might as well watch these too.